sell those.
Well, I hope we have enough information to make a decision.
We'll see what we get. I assume Mel will be calling in again, huh?
What's that?
I assume Mel will be on the phone again.
Good to see you. Good to see you up in Washington. This is the place. Those are the gentlemen. Some of them.
Why are all the chairs downloaded this way?
Yeah, they all kind of push that way.
Sure, I'll let you know.
Yeah.
The way they're going about it.
Yeah. Bernie down here, he's always let me, several times he's, Bernie's had to go find a chair.
I
just got the Easter Drive.
Really? I didn't know it was that serious.
Yeah.
So was it blockage?
First couple I could do,
Yeah, I just got it like, I ordered it last June and I got it a week. I got a track.
Don't come up without a chair for yourself. They're trying to warn you.
Huh? Okay, I'll go get one somewhere. How y'all doing? How you? Good. Yeah, this is where Diana says. Never. Well, she's in a wheelchair, so she. Oh, yeah. And I ordered it, they kind of measured me, said, okay, you need a medium. So the medium, so they got like 15 people. And, so I wrote, so we'll take it out for, look it up. And as soon as I pulled back, both of the guys were, the bike's too small for you. So fortunately, they had a large, and the wheel size was big. And I'm like, oh, yeah. Yeah.
I've got two off that.
Okay. I've got a 26-year-old. Oh, they're notes. They're notes.
I was looking for something to tie.
I just cut it out because we have. Really? But those are generally. Actually, those are more relevant. Yeah. We wrestle in that.
How are you?
Good, you?
I'm alive. Hey. Almost. That's a good thing.
I take it very. Stand by.
How did I come this way since you guys all get over here? Morning. Welcome back, big guy. Welcome back. Are you alive? Okay. Yes. Good to see you. I don't know how you can do that, so I was impressed with your
Yeah.
computer skills.
The backgrounds are there.
I've been understanding how to run them, I don't know. So. My wife could probably get me through it, but I sure couldn't. So. Morning, sir. I am alive, how are you? Good.
Mel is gonna be on the telephone, I'm sure.
Oh, Mel is?
And then there's other rep,
Okay.
Bobbers. It's cold. Yeah, it's 30 degrees. I mean, compared to the last few days. Compared to the last few days, it's warm.
Walked outside and said, oh, I can, well, I'm not gonna wait.
They make it through this. name and shape and everything. Got me a double bypass and a valve replacement. New Year's Eve.
That didn't sound good.
Oh, it's funny as hell. I went to the fridge and I started getting go on the instant. He's up in good shape.
Yeah.
On the second floor. 3 crosses hospital.
Okay.
He's up on the second floor. There's no lights on. Sit down, the lights come on.
Yeah.
He shows up. This is Wednesday at 2 o'clock. He shows up. Okay. So I said, so when do you think you can do this? He goes, how about Friday? Sure, I guess. And he goes, good, because I already booked it. So it's been half a Thursday at the hospital.
I think we're all. Good morning, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Marvelous.
There you go.
What is that?
It's in order.
This is in order?
Yes.
How are
I'm still
you?
waiting for my shirt.
You're what?
I'm still waiting for
Oh,
my shirt.
from the kitty?
Yes. Every section I picked.
Why don't you just go down to the floor and sit? Ken said to give me one.
Yeah.
Right at the middle. Stop.
I'll bring one to you, that's what I'll do.
Yeah, whatever you want. We go to the hockey game all the time. Every time. They have those shirts that they shoot.
And then they shoot this
And
direction, and
yeah.
you're over here.
They tell now.
And it was,
Yeah, I took the sooner the better. I was gonna say, Look at Tom.
I'll put Janita's down.
Chair Costa, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear.
Yes, sir. You're logged in twice. Is there any way you can log off of one of the sessions?
All right, I'll do that.
Thank you, sir.
I'm Dana.
You can speak with Arthur. Okay.
We were able to check email this morning and saw the slides with a note from Trish, but I have a PowerPoint set of slides just on this one.
Morning, morning. Good to see you guys. It is? Well, welcome back, stranger. How you doing?
He's used to drive and then.
You get 3 cars, 2 sets.
Yeah.
$3.
I'm waiting to hear from Memorial.
We ready to go, Steve? Okay. Bill, you ready? You ready? Okay, I'm just checking. Okay. Good morning. If you would, on this case that's coming up, SU 21017, if you would like to speak in favor of the case or in opposition to it, would you please sign in with the clerk over here? Commissioner Acosta, are you online? No. Was he? Mel, wake up.
Twice a minute ago.
Yes, Mr. Chair, can you hear me?
Thank you, Mel.
Okay.
So we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Excuse me. Eileen, you want to call the roll call of officers, please?
Commissioner Zargis,
Present.
Commissioner Thurston,
Present?
Commissioner Herrera,
Here.
Commissioner Montañez,
Present.
Commissioner Lear,
Here.
Commissioner Acosta,
Present by phone?
Chair Zerniak.
Here. Thank you. Are there any changes or additions, solutions to the agenda? If not, I'll hear a motion to approve.
Move the agenda is presented.
Second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Aye. Approval of the minutes for the P and Z meeting, January 27th, 2022.
Move to approve the minutes, Mr. Chair.
Second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, so case number SU 21-017 is a continuation of a case that we had at our last meeting. So, Art? So this, I will make clear, this is not a new hearing. This is a continuation.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
As stated on the first slide.
thank you.
Good morning. Please state your name and address for the record.
Art Rubio, 845 North Hotel.
Do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give today is the truth and nothing but the truth under penalty of law?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a point of order. I don't think we have to swear people in again, do we? If they were sworn, we do?
Yes, Mr. Chair. we
Okay,
do.
thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Art Rubio, Community Development. So the next item on the agenda is special use permit case number SU 2117. The case was initially heard on January 27, 2022, and postponed by the P&Z today to address site plan and the change in floor area, the STA submittal, the applicant's narrative, and change to include types of church-related uses. So all those items have been submitted and reviewed. The narrative was provided to you, that was received yesterday, with the slight change in some of the related uses for the church. On the synopsis, really the only changes on the request, the applicant did change the floor area to 6,000 square feet for the church. And then as far as public comment, we did receive 3 additional letters. Initially it was 16, now it's 19. So we received 3 letters, which are now included in your packet that you just received. They were received after the agenda was posted. That's why you're getting it here at the meeting. And Mr. Chair, I hope you're okay with that. I'm just going to browse through like the other stuff, just focus on the main things that were pending from the previous meeting.
Yeah.
Okay? So on the applicant's narrative, so now the special use permit is to build a 60 by 100 building for religious purposes. Current membership of 145 people, but sanctuary will be able to seat 300 comfortably. Eventually, one weekly service on Sunday at 10:45 to 12:45 p.m. Approximately 6 members meet Wednesday evenings, 5:30 to 7, to film Bible study, aired on Thursdays, and approximately 25 members gather for youth activities twice a month. Approximately 3 members gather one time monthly to film women's Bible study, and approximately 3 times yearly, 25 people attend parenting, marriage, and single classes. Fridays from 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. Every Friday, approximately 10 people attend praise and worship practice from 5:30 to 7 p.m., and then weddings and funerals are occasionally hosted throughout the year. This is the revised site plan. There was a question on the numbering. The numbering is really just notes related to each of the sections there. So the applicant is proposing a 60-foot wide, 100-foot long, 6,000 square foot metal building for a church with 100 parking spaces. So the STA was submitted, and based on the review by engineering, the most critical day was not considered. Sunday peak hour of the generator should be looked at as the peak hours traffic total 105 trips with 50 entering and 55 exiting. Based on this information, a TIA will be required at the building permit submittal and shall be a condition of the special use permit, which we've added. Just for the record, a TIA is a traffic impact analysis, and typically it's required right before you start the construction, because at that point is when you've already engineered the plan and you know what kind of situation you're gonna have. Really quick, this is the zoning map that I apologize I didn't include. The subject property is currently zoned D2L, medium-density residential zone, which permits a mixture of single-family site-built homes, manufactured homes, duplex residences, townhouse apartments, and related residential support uses. This is the aerial and a close-up aerial of the subject property. And primarily to the east, to the north, and to the south are residential uses, and there's also some commercial use to the west. Public notification, kind of went over that already. Just want to state that the previous SUP, SU 21-009, that the applicant submitted is now null and void because they specified that there was an error on the submittal. This is the notification aerial as required by state and county requirements for 300 feet, the buffer, and then based on assessor's records for the properties that are notified. Just a quick signposting, which meets the current county requirements and state requirements. This is a subject property. Subject property. This is to the south, looking at Webb Road. This is looking east, looking north, looking west. This is the axis. Again, engineering did require that axis only be taken from Webb Road and that it be, the driveways be at least 150 feet away from the corner of the lot. And the site plan does show that change as well, the 150 feet with the driveways there. These are the applicable plans, policies, or criteria for approval. This is the staff analysis. Some of the changes, potential traffic. So the applicant will need to mitigate any potential for traffic flows. Impacts will be mitigated as required by DAC. And then based on the STA submitted, a TIA will be required at the building permit stage and as part of condition that we're placing on this recommendation for approval. Need for new commercial or residential activity. There is a need for institutional like civic uses. The county does have a definition of institutional uses, and that's typically more of your governmental utility type uses. So I guess this would be considered a civic use based on the county's definition of institutional uses. Potential water and sewer needs. Water is available through Moongate Water Company, and a permit for a wastewater system will be submitted to NMED. The existing infrastructure, all required infrastructure will become available and will be extended to the proposed development as required. Environmental sensitive areas, there is no proof that there are areas of historical significance, areas that contain endangered or rare species of animal and plant life. The impact of proposed SUP and surrounding properties, church use will not be a significant impact on the surrounding properties. The current zone is D2, medium density residential, which allows for higher density residential and more of a potential impact for surrounding properties. Implementation of best management practice. Although the applicant graded without a permit, they are working to rectify the grading issue and will be following and implementing best management practices going forward. These are the findings. Mr. Chair, did you want me to go through them again? There's really the only changes on number 5 as far as the square footage. But I could summarize them if you want. Okay. So P&Z has jurisdiction to hear the case. Based on 351-4 administrative duties, the PNC can hear and make final determination on SUPs. Public notice requirements have been met pursuant to 352-04C notice. Requests meet 352-04 decisional criteria for an SUP. Request is consistent with a D2L zoning district as a permitted use within the approval of an SUP. And the use will not be detrimental to the health, safety, and welfare of the surrounding area and will be required to follow building services, engineering, flood commission, and fire requirements, as well as all state requirements. So final recommendation, based on the staff analysis, the findings listed above, and conformance to elements of the Comprehensive Plan 2040, the proposed church use meeting 352-04 decisional criteria and UDC compliance for special use permits, staff recommends conditional approval of case number SU 2117, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, access to the subject property is limited to Webb Road. No access from La Reina Road, minor collector rotary will be allowed. The access is to be at least 150 feet away from the intersection of La Reina and Webb Road. Based on the STA information received, the TI will be required at building permit submittal, and a certificate of occupancy will not be issued unless mitigation, if any, is required by the TIA to be addressed. Applicant must provide erosion and dust control measures within 10 days to correct grading without permit and will be subject to triple fee. Applicant must comply with site plan requirements pursuant to 352-08 detailed site plan and all county, state, and grading and building permits requirements at the building permit stage requirements. So with that, that concludes my presentation, unless there's any questions from the commission.
Questions?
Mr. Chair, one question.
Yes,
Or,
sir.
Yes, sir.
actually, two questions. Based on the D2, the medium residential zoning, in the case of multifamily,
Yes, sir.
how many apartments, if you had a small apartment complex, what would be our maximum allowed units on a parcel like that?
I believe the minimum is 6,000 square feet.
Okay.
So typically you just divide that, there's 4.23 acres. That's like a rough estimate of what would be allowed.
My second question is, would a TIA determine a need for deceleration lanes on Webb Road?
There is a representative from engineering. I'd rather them.
She nodded her head yes, I think.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chair, nothing further.
Yep.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
During your description of the D2L zoning area, you used the phrase community support facilities. I think that was the term.
Yes, sir.
Can you define that for me? What does that entail?
So it would be uses similar to this, civic institutional type uses. It could be governmental civic type uses. It could be other services, for example, through an SUP, you could do like, for example, kenneling of animals. So it's like support services for residential areas, those types of uses.
Okay.
But nothing that's like high commercial or anything like that. It'd
Okay.
be kind of like limited or very light commercial type uses.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Bill?
I have a few questions that I
Yes, sir.
would like to address. Based on the site plan, I guess I'd like to find out what the county's request or requirements would be on the improvements to Webb Road and to the south, no, that would be the north side of Webb Road, and then the east side of
Lorena?
Lorena Road. Does the staff have recommendations from the building department or the, I guess it would be the road department?
At this time,
As to
sir,
what improvements would be required for,
at this time, based on the comments from engineering, when they come in for their building permits, they'll be required to do a TIA. Based on whatever the conclusions are from the TIA will determine what type of improvements they'll need to do, which would include possibly deceleration lanes and things like that, or additional widening of the road, or whatever improvements would be required.
would that include curb and gutter and sidewalks along Lorena and also Webb Road? Is that? I didn't hear that.
She's saying that could possibly be the case based on the analysis of the TIA. They could determine that as well, yes, sir.
Am I mistaken that any improvements to those kind of roads would be mandatory on approval of a subdivision, or? So does the applicant know that that's what they're facing as far as total improvements out there? The curb, the gutter, the sidewalk, the paving, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera?
Ken, hold on just a second. If you want to speak, you're going to have to come up and be sworn in.
Good morning. Please state your name and address for the record.
Bernadette Jendo, 845 North Motel.
Do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give today is the truth and nothing but the truth under penalty of law?
I do.
Thank you.
Regarding if they're going to need sidewalks, that's going to depend on the TIA. And as far as widening the road, the same thing, excel, decel lanes, that's all going to depend on the TIA. What's determined, can't make those calls right away without knowing that information. So do they know? Now they know. They should know when they're coming into this that they might have to make those changes. But as far as sidewalks, there's not a lot of sidewalks out there. So I don't know. I couldn't say for a fact that they're going to have sidewalks out there.
So
They
you-
might in front of their
Bernadette, you're just saying we have to wait for the TIA.
We have to wait for the TIA. We do. We can't make that call right now. Does that help you? I don't know if that's answering the question you're asking. I know you want more, but really can't give that without having more information.
Okay,
Just, Mr. Chair, just for a little bit of clarity here, the access point, though, is going to be on Webb Road. There will not be any access point
No,
from
off of
Lorena.
Lorena, right.
So, I mean, this is just it's just an assumption that, sidewalks, additional infrastructure, deceleration lanes wouldn't be required on Lorena, possibly just on Webb Road, but they could.
Right,
I mean, it's possible, though.
possible,
Yeah.
right.
Depending on the.
Because you got to
depending on the
remember,
TIA.
these roads are only so wide, right? And so you're going to put more traffic on those roads, right? And so we have to take that into consideration. But again, we can't make those calls until we have a TIA to assess it properly. Does that help you out?
Well, In a way, I understand what you're saying, but in another way, it would appear that if an individual is improving their particular property, and they're going to increase the traffic on that particular corner, and knowing that on Lorena, there is another turn very close, then it would, I'm just assuming that the ordinances of the county would require those improvements. And I guess I'm questioning whether the applicant understands the costs of those improvements that would be basically implemented before they could put the church in there.
Okay, so that's not a question for me.
I
That's
understand,
for the-
but I was just wondering if
They know that
your
already.
department has reviewed that and given any indication on that, but you're waiting and relying on the TIA.
Right, yes, sir.
Okay.
Bernadette?
Yes, sir.
Just a question for you. I don't know what, Art, did you do the STA?
Sir, the STA was done by a professional engineer that I'm aware of, and then submitted to our engineer, Mr. Rene Molina, and then he reviewed it.
Okay, here's the problem I have with the STA, what we have in front of us. There's almost 200 parking spaces in that parking lot, and you're telling me it's 55 in and 50 out?
No, right. I
Right?
agree. I agree with you, yes.
So it was as.
Right.
as-
It's
as-
not adequate, right.
Right.
That's why we're asking for a TA, because we need adequate information.
So this is a comment more than it is a question. Whoever does that TIA needs to address the issue of the effect of traffic on the neighborhood, because as vehicles come out of that lot and they turn right, you're going to get about 10 cars lined up. That's all you can get now. That means that what they're going to do is they're going to turn left, and they're going to go up to Creek Trail and make a left there, go up to Westmoreland, make a left, and come out on Lorena anyway. Right? So what I would ask is that you make sure that the TIA is not just an intersection analysis. It looks at the potential impact
On the neighborhood.
on the neighborhood.
Okay.
Yeah. And if they run a model manually or on a computer, that they look at the possibility of putting a median strip in there and a right turn only out of the church.
Okay.
All right? Any other questions for Bernadette? Thank you. Any other questions for Art? Art, have they applied for a grading permit yet?
No, sir, not that I'm aware of. But they may not need to actually apply for a permit right now. They could just start doing the mitigation. If I'm understanding correctly, Bernadette? They can just do the mitigation. Do they need to apply for a grading permit now?
Sorry, Bernadette, I thought Art was.
First, they need to provide a grading and drainage plan to us. They need to provide a grading and draining plan for us to review. We provide comments, then they can apply for the permit.
Okay.
But a licensed contractor, licensed engineer has to do the grading and drainage plan. A licensed contractor needs to be the person to apply for the grading permit. They also need to provide a SWIP at the same time they go to get the grading permit.
Okay.
And so I think they're in the process. From my understanding, they're in the process of getting that work done. So they're not going to meet the 10 days, of course, because it is a process to get that stuff done.
Okay.
Okay?
They can mitigate it without agreeing, correct?
Yes.
That's what we're asking,
Okay. Yes.
mitigation. Still sensing or not.
So Art, on your, can you come up and look at, I don't know if it was I think it was recommendations.
Sorry.
think county staff has all the same germs, so I'm not. That was it,
Oh, that
right
was
there.
it.
So on number 4, it says applicant must provide erosion and dust control measures within 10 days. Within 10 days of what?
Within 10 days of
Today,
today, if they are approved.
if it's approved?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right, don't go away.
Yes, sir.
So you said under staff analysis, under B, that where it says the need for new commercial or residential activity, you said there's a need for institutional uses, and that it's close to a mix of residential and commercial uses. So first, how do you know there's a need for institutional uses? What justifies that statement?
Just like if you do like the buffer that we did, there are no other similar uses. There's no other church that I could see within that buffer.
Okay, take your mask off.
Okay, sorry.
That's all right.
Thank you.
Right.
And you said, and the location is situated close to a mix of residential and commercial uses. Where are the commercial uses close by?
So there's that one use to the west on La Reina, but if you go further on Del Rey, there's a lot more. There's, I think there's like a welding shop, and then there's some other heavier, actually industrial type uses in that area.
I want to add, there's also a RV storage facility, and I believe the Ben Archer Health Clinic is still active there as well.
Okay.
Right.
But that's like a mile away?
Probably about
The-
a quarter mile away.
Right. The industrial uses are closer, I believe. They're just off of, actually, right, La Reina.
All right.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
It is.
It's just, I guess Del Rey turns into La Reina, so, yes, sir.
Okay, and then under F, you say, and I think Commissioner Montañez addressed this, it says that it's a D2, which allows for higher density residential and more of a potential for impact to the surrounding properties. What does that mean?
It means that D2 is medium density residential, right? So you could have a potential for a lot of units, which would trigger a lot more traffic than the proposed use per unit.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
If I may, and the reason I did address that and ask Mr. Rubio this question is I do feel there's potential, and I want to make sure the public understands this, there is potential for way higher impact on your surrounding neighborhood with a large apartment complex there than there would be with this church. And that's why I wanted to ask what the, what the maximum amount of multifamily units would be allowed there.
Yes, sir. And if I may, Mr. Chair, I'm not an expert on that, right? But the trips associated with residential use are much higher than this type of use, than commercial use. Much, much higher. Because you're talking about all hours. Morning, afternoon peak hours are way higher. And then this use specifically for certain days when they have their events, rather than like on a daily basis.
Maybe overall, but I don't know about peak hour.
Oh, peak hour, like for
That's
residential?
okay, that's all right, I don't want to debate
Right.
that. So can you go back to the site plan?
Sure.
What's the symbol, or what is the symbol on Lorena just above the 640-foot mark? Do you see it?
Let me look at my
Looks like a weight.
Yeah, it looks like a dumbbell,
Yeah.
but I don't know what that is. I want to make sure, is that an emergency exit? Is that,
I thought they were. Right. Yeah, no, I'd have to ask the applicant about that. I'm not really sure.
okay.
Chair, can you go back to the colored site that showed
The
the entire area that, right there. In order for D2, higher density and so forth to be allowed in the area, to comply with the zone, would it not have to have a sewer capacity?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Does the county know where the sewer provider is at the current time? Is the sewer close to that location? Is it across the street? Is it across the highway?
I don't really have that information.
Do we
sir.
have any information on that through the Public Works? No?
I
But
believe
it's currently septic right now.
I understand that
And I'm
it's
not sure
currently
how-
septic, but
I'm not
is-
sure when it would get to that area. No, sir.
The reason I'm bringing it up, if you try to go for a higher density, you're not going to get a approval from what I call the state on a septic tank unless you have a 3/4 acre or 1 acre lot.
Yes, sir.
But
You're
if we
correct.
start talking about higher density,
Correct.
fourplex or eightplex or apartments, then I think the sewer capacity, or if it's even available in the area, needs to be looked at. But
Yes, sir. That is going back to the comment that I made that the D2 would, the medium density residential use would be more of an impact to the area because it would require more of that infrastructure. Additional water, sewer needs, as opposed to a use that's not widely used as residential.
Okay, and we do not have a map that shows sewer service available in any of the county maps in that area?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Thurston, we do on our GIS. And if memory serves correct, the nearest facility would be the city of Las Cruces or Doniana Mutual, which is on the other side of the highway by the
So
village.
both of those are on the west side?
West side, south side. So the city would be south, and then west would be Doniana Mutual.
Okay. All righty.
Sir.
Back to the site plan.
Yes, sir.
So from NMED, they say the liquid waste system needs to be set up such that there will never be any vehicular traffic over the drain field area. So that drain field area would have to be in the northeast corner of that property. And I think that's uphill. And so that's one issue. And number two is there enough area for a drain field of the size required for a facility like that?
Yes, sir, and that's typically why we don't ask for as much detail, even though the site plan requirements do ask for it. Because typically at the time of permitting is when they'll engineer the plan and those issues will be resolved when they submit their final plans.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
all right. So really, the only issue in front of us is the land use itself.
Correct, yes, sir.
Okay. All
Yes,
right.
sir.
Any other questions of staff? Okay, thank you, Art.
Yes, sir.
Does the applicant have anything that you would like to add today? Please.
Good morning. Please state your name and address for the record.
Leila Gomez, 2506 Cheyenne Drive.
Do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give today is the truth and nothing but the truth under penalty of law?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Morning.
It's good to see you, sir, back from your wooded trip, your vacation. Your background was nice. I did enjoy it. First off, I want to say that I do appreciate all the time that has been taken to consider our request. I don't know how often that you have to meet a second time on a situation, but I do appreciate that from all of you. Also from the community over there residing near Webb and Lorena, those that have attended here, whether it's in favor or opposition of. I know that we, at the last hearing, we did watch a video from a resident that was located 1.2 miles from the property. And some of the letters of opposition have been from people, a mile from the property. But it does show that they care about their neighborhood and about the surroundings. I want to say how confident again that I am on what we will bring and the impact that we'll have to that community. I noticed before that I, leave, the last housing area there on Del Rey, that there's a Dollar General or a Family Dollar. I know that that was needed in that community for the longest time. And I think that that is something that that community has enjoyed. And I do believe that once we build and once we get settled in, we will not be an eyesore. We will be, something that people are proud of. Our church has been established since January of 2000, 22 years now. And we are a 501c nonprofit religious organization that is in good standing with the federal government and with state. We started so many years ago with absolutely nothing but a few metal folding chairs. And like I said, we are not a business. An apartment complex, for instance, like what you brought up, sir, that people have to pay us to enter into our doors. It's strictly through contributions. And we have an awesome core of people that support this ministry. I stated before that my husband and I both work. I'm a teacher at up here at Rio Grande Preparatory Institute, so I'm dressed like what I am. I service long-term suspension children. My husband works. We have worked all of our lives and done ministry, so we have held down 2 full-time jobs and done it very, very well. We have always brought positive impact to our community wherever we've been. Our love for God, loving our neighbors as ourselves, openly supporting our frontline workers in the ERs, the clinics, the police department, fire department, schools, foster programs, Mesilla Valley Hospital. We've provided food, groceries, hot meals to families paralyzed by COVID, families who have lost loved ones to COVID. We have stepped in and done that in these past couple of years especially. We provide personal hygiene products, blankets, coats to homeless and needy children. We do not have that program ourselves, but we support the programs that are already in place. I noticed there were letters that asked that question. Would we start a soup kitchen? Would we, bring in druggies, as they said? There's not a community that does not have need of our services. Some communities hide it and mask it better than others. But I know myself, people that live in $1 million homes, and there's domestic violence in those homes. There's rape, there's incest, and a church is needed. And if you look at it from the marketing stance, which I don't like to look at it like that, Mr. Rubio is correct in stating there are not churches nearby. I know that there was a statement made by one of the residents of that community that they have no need of a church, it might not be their faith. But I just want to present to you the things that we do in a community that is without bias or prejudice to anybody's faith, or even if they're atheist. These are services that we provide just because they're human beings. We make lunches for the hungry as Salvation Army. We have cleaned up local businesses and local residents' yards. All of this for free. We don't charge on this. We visit the sick in hospital rooms. We offer marriage, parenting, singles classes to strengthen families in our community. We offer small group classes to build community and friendships in positive ways. We have created co-ed sports among local churches in Las Cruces, such as football, basketball, volleyball, for all faiths to strengthen our community. We perform weddings, funerals for citizens of Doña Ana County. We host fall celebrations, Easter egg hunts, children's dedications, water baptisms, Christmas programs at zero cost to our community. We have youth activities, out-of-town trips, Bible studies, free moving game nights, Nerf wars, pumpkin carving, gingerbread house making, all at zero cost to our youth, and bring a positive impact to their lives and provide them role models within a faith-based, God-loving community. We provide counseling for those who are grieving, death, divorce, suicidal, marital challenges, all at zero cost. We provide community service for people trying to make retribution. We provide resources for housing, employment, education, medical needs, etc., all for zero cost. And I know that there is a lot of potential scenarios that are constantly being presented in these two hearings on what if. I do want to remind all of you that are sitting here before me on this panel that our main hours of operation are only on Sundays, 10:45 to 12:45. That's it. We're talking about a 2-hour window. And I don't know that that is peak hour. I don't know that that is even considered peak hour, sir. We're talking about 2 hours. And we do have ushers and staff. We're able to put up signs that say right turn only. We know we've done that already. As I shared earlier, we were located prior at 320 West University. The only road that we could use for ingress and egress was Stanford Road. And we had our staff out there directing the traffic. We would never set ourselves up to be liable for hurting any child, any pet. We take care of all of that out in the parking lot because accidents can happen at Walmart, any place where there is a lot of traffic. But we're talking about a 2-hour window within 7 days. And I understand all of the genuine concerns. I guess where my mind is at is, are these genuine concerns or are these just things to nitpick apart this program, this function of ministry that is needed for any community? People are hurting in this world right now. Children are hurting in this world right now. I dealt with a child yesterday that showed me 28 scars on his arm where he's tried to kill himself and cut himself. I wish I could express to you the need. 4 days ago, we lost a woman who lost her battle, 41 years old, to COVID pneumonia. We'll be hosting that funeral at our church where we're located now. Proud to do so. I refuse to hang my head on the work that we do because we don't charge for it. You won't walk in our doors and you have to pay a price or get a stamp on your hand to be able to go in and worship God and be blessed without bias or prejudice to whether it's your race, your creed, your nationality, your culture. Those things do not matter to us. My concern has been, I am going to voice this, that because of the surrounding houses there, if you look at those pictures that show any surrounding houses, I do worry that after we're done building our facility, will they bring our property value down? And no one has even mentioned that because we will have something nice. We are presenting you something nice. Just to clarify too, that little part that you said looked like a barbell or dumbbell, that's just a design. That's all it is. It's just a design. Nothing more, nothing less. As far as if we need sidewalks, there'll be sidewalks. But please let me note for the record, there's not sidewalks anywhere out there. Nowhere. Nowhere. It's not like this is an upgraded community or that it's like Picacho Hills. And I have family. My son and daughter are living out in Picacho Hills. And we bring nothing but positive impact to anywhere that we go. And with that, I would like to say my hope is today that there is no further extension, that we're able to move forward. If it is a TIA that we are to obtain, we will. This past Sunday, we had 33 people ready to put up a silt fencing. We stopped because I reread everything. We're not to be on that property, do anything on that property until we get the SUP. I can't get a grading permit without the SUP. This is the foundation and the starting point for all of it. And so today I want to reiterate that that is my hope, that that is granted to us, and I don't believe that we will fail you. I believe that you will be proud of this decision and that you will look back on it one day and say this is a good decision that we have made for the people of the area of Webb Road and Lorena. Do you have any questions for me?
Bill?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I don't think any of us have any issues with the good work that your group does for the community in that.
Thank you, sir.
I have some questions regarding the site plan.
Yes, sir.
We didn't have really complete information a couple of weeks ago when we went over this and asked you guys to go back and get us more info. The site plan is full of notes and numbers and things. What do they mean? I mean, number 1 is the church building, but what is 2 and 3 and all that? I assume that there's some notes to go with this site plan that
Yes,
we
Mr.
didn't get.
Rubio, is that included in your notes? If not, I can pull that up on my phone.
I can let you know, sir. Like note number 1, that's the proposed parking per county standards. Number 3 is the ponding. It's referencing a grading and drainage plan that will be submitted. And then number 4 is the extended parking as required by the county. Number 5 would be the open area, a possible park. Number 6 through number 9 are just the setback requirements,
Right,
you know. And then number 10 is the property line.
okay. Where is, there is quite a bit of information from Doña Ana County Engineering about the drain field septic thing. Where would those be located on the site plan? Is it going to be out and back there like where that 3, 8, and 5 are? Or
Well,
would it be
that's
up
what-
underneath where the,
And again, after we get the SUP and we continue to involve our engineers into this, from the last hearing to now, it's been 2 weeks. So it has been a whirlwind just to be able to present this. We went back and forth, you know, as far as planning. I know that I had told the engineer that at the back of the church, which would be on the east side of the building, that we wanted a couple of parking areas, like pastoral parking areas. Those are quite a few. That won't be. We do not plan on having the building surrounded by parking areas. And so it was mine and my husband's thought after speaking to engineers that that's actually where the septic tanks would go because that would be closer to the water that would come down Webb Road.
okay. All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
I don't know, where's number 4?
It's number 3.
Threes appear to be ponding areas.
And number 3 is number 3, and number 4 should be number 3 on the parking.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Our engineers never make those kind of mistakes.
Any other questions from Ms. Gomez?
Okay, thank you again.
Thank you. Bernadette, can you come back up for just a second? You know, wait. Ms. Gomez, come back up. I gotta get this, gotta get something straight.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry.
No.
Most of your parishioners, I'm just wondering, would they come from the south or from the north on Lorena? I'm sure they live all over, but I'm just trying to understand, on Sunday morning, where would the traffic come from? And this relates to the TIA eventually.
Yes. So they would come from the south of Del Rey.
Okay,
You know, where the property sits and the pictures that you saw on that three-way, you see all 3 roads because Del Rey turns into Lorena. So they would come up from the south of Del Rey.
okay, all right.
Okay.
So Bernadette, come on up. Let me ask you a question and maybe make a suggestion. So if most of the traffic on Sunday morning, which is when most of the traffic is going to affect this property, comes up Del Rey and eventually they end up on Lorena here, why wouldn't we run a TIA and recommend a decel lane on Lorena and a right-hand turn into the property instead of putting all those people on Webb and forcing them to make a left-hand turn into the property?
No access off of Lorena.
But the question is why? If there's a decel lane, and we have decel lanes for right-hand turns all over the county.
When you look at the site plan, which I don't know how to get to it, or you look to the map, you have Webb, and then not far from it, you have Del Rey, right? So you
Right.
have those 2. It's too close Because your driveway has to be, because it's an arterial road, you have to have 150 feet from that intersection, and you don't have that. And if you look at the property, you don't have that. That's why also it is an arterial road. For safety reasons, we restrict access off of Lorena.
So the dollar store, do you know where that is?
No, I haven't been that far down in a while.
That's in the city, sir.
Well, I'm just asking whether or not that has access off of Del Rey.
It
has
does.
direct access.
It does have direct
doesn't-
access. And it
Yeah.
does have a decel lane. Well, I think part of the reason there's decelling is because Park Hill is,
The subdivision.
yes.
Yeah. Okay, all right.
You're bringing up a good question, though.
No, it is a good question.
And this is where my concern is if you come this way from the project to what was required of Park Hill, and that's the same road that we're talking about. So eventually, I'm assuming that that's what's going to carry on, and the reason that this county is saying no access in or out of there is because you're wanting to protect that particular stretch of road as it develops out. But now we have one individual that's ready to do their development, and are we going to back off and say, okay, if you were a mile down the road, you would have to do the decel, you would have to do the 3, you'd have to do this. But because you're a mile and a half away from there, today, we're not going to require that. But now, a year from now, someone else comes in and puts another one right across the street from the Westmoreland construction deal. What's gonna, and that's where I'm headed with the questions, what is going to be required of that particular situation? And I've, being in the profession I'm in, I see that happening where all of a sudden, we put in a project, now we have to do the decel lane, we have to put the curb, the gutter, the whole works. And I just know the cost of that. And I have a fear that the cost of that, if implemented to the same standard as what's back on Del Rey this side, it's going to blow somebody's budget, or you might have some divine intervention with some of your members that might be able to come through with some monumental dollars, but it's a concern. But I don't know what the TIA is going to tell you.
Right.
But I know eventually those improvements are going to be like Del Rey and in front of the commercial units that are there, so.
To the chair, if I could say something really quick on that.
Yes, sir.
What I was going to say is really the purpose of the TIA is to see what type of mitigation will need to be done, right? So in essence, the TIA will dictate any of that. So if that changes, it'll be through that analysis of the TIA, because the TIA may say that. The TIA may say to mitigate, you'll have to put some of that traffic there.
On Lorena.
On Lorena. It's they don't know yet, but it's a possibility, right? It is possible that the TIA may say for mitigation purpose, you need to move the traffic out here, which would be safer instead. But we really can't tell until the TIA comes in.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
a comment and a question, Art. So in the case, I'm going to go back to medium density, potential for medium density residential there. In the case of a fourplex or a higher multiplex, would there still not be access allowed from Lorena Road?
I
Bernadette?
think that would be their same stand, yes, sir.
So access would still need
For
to be from
safety,
Webb Road.
yes, sir.
And also just to assume a TIA wouldn't be required because it's already zoned. It's already zoned D2.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And just to clarify also, so the STA is called a site threshold analysis, right? That's really just to see if you're going to need a TIA. It's really not a full analysis of the traffic yet, because you don't know. You need that deeper analysis of the TIA that's going to give you those counts, and it's going to tell you, you need to mitigate by doing that. Like, that's what I was saying, that there is a possibility that you may need to go to La Reina, depending on that TIA. But you can't ask for it now because they're not at that stage yet. Right now, it's just the special use permit that they're looking at. And further down the line, when they do submit for the permits, when they finally engineer the plans, they'll determine all that. They'll determine where they're gonna put those, the wastewater system, where it will go. But right now, it's almost like this is a conceptual with a little more detail, but you'll get to that point when you submit the building permits along with that.
And just to also to Commissioner Zerniak, your comparison to the dollar store on Park Hill, that city development is very similar to, further east, was already zone C3. And I'm very, very familiar with that area as well. So of course they did not, there was a lot that was not required of them either because that had been zone C3 in quite a while. We're further up the road, we're seeing a D2L with a special use permit requirement. Nothing further, Mr. Chair.
Right, and to the chair, I also wanted to say, if not this use, if you do the medium density, do you really want a residential use that close to a major arterial and have that traffic, that much traffic going through there? That's from our analysis, is seeing the alternative, which is the D2, medium density residential.
Bernadette, thank you. I guess what I know that the special use permit deals with the land use per se, but the access and egress points have raised some other issues for us. And because that's included in the evaluation, it seems appropriate to ask those questions. Okay, I know that, Eileen, who do you have on the list?
Dara Parker.
Oh, Dara.
I have 4 people on the list to speak.
Okay.
Good one. Oh, I've got a glove anyway.
Good morning. Can you please state your name and address for the record?
Dara Parker, 5074 Vista Chico Loop.
Do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give today is the truth and nothing but the truth under penalty of law?
I do.
Thank you.
So Dara, you're either going to have to take your mask off or speak very closely to the mic, okay?
If it's okay, I have some significant health issues, so can you hear me okay?
Yep.
This way? Okay.
Yep.
I will do my best. I apologize for that. I know it's tricky these days. I spoke to Janine earlier. I have a neighbor that wound up having an emergency visit to the dentist and asked me to read her letter, if that's acceptable to the commissioners. To the Planning and Zoning Commissioners, please deny SU 21017 for a steel church in my neighborhood. The church is not needed or wanted, as indicated in the 15+ public comment letters and testimony you have received. The application for this permit was recently heard by the commission on 27 January and was tabled to 10 February due to an incomplete packet and conflicting information about what was being proposed. The applicant has now revised their request to reflect a 6,000 square foot church rather than the 5,000 square foot structure in their original application, nor the 6,600 square foot structure that is still posted on their Facebook page. I believe it is still their intention to build a 6,600 square foot structure, but stating 6,000 square feet at this time allows them to skirt the new permit process. The applicant has already shown disregard for and willingness to violate county regulations and is being charged for grading and signing the property without any permits. That alone should be grounds to deny the application according to the DAC regulations. The applicant stated there were no sensitive animal or plant species on the property before it was graded, but to my knowledge, there was never a survey done by a qualified biologist to support this assertion. The property is at the right elevation and correct vegetation, mesquite and creosote, and soils to support the state endangered night blooming cereus, which occurs to the west and east of this area. I'm a biologist and have done surveys for this species myself. My original concerns about traffic, noise, light, and property values still stand. See my letter dated 19 January. I believe that the volume of traffic is being underestimated and will be a major nuisance and safety hazard for area residents. With the applicant already showing disregard for regulations, I can only anticipate additional violations, and I do not look forward to the stressful process of neighborhood residents trying to have them rectified. I urge you to deny the permit so the applicant can build in a more appropriate and suitable location that is not zoned residential. Approval of this permit will be a disservice to the residents of our community, and our needs and wishes should also be considered. Thank you, Trish Cutler, 2311 Webb Road. Okay.
What was her name again?
That was Trish Cutler.
Okay.
And could you hear her address? Okay. Okay. Great. So again, my name is Dara Parker, and I really appreciate, as the applicant stated, all the commission's time and thoughtful attention to this case. There's obviously a lot of detail to consider here. I had a presentation prepared. You've already addressed some of the questions that I had, so I'm going to try and skip back and forth and address some new things. I apologize, it's not nearly as organized as last time's. I very much respect the commission's effort to base your decision on a full set of information. Yet, in my opinion, based on my reading of the code, you still have not been provided a complete application. It appears that and this is actually, so there's some new information that came out today with respect to hours of operation and things like that the public was not privy to, that we've been asking for. So it's a little hard to process all of this on the fly when it should have been really in the packet for everyone to understand up front. But maybe the narrative is complete now. It's a little unclear, but the site plan still seems to be incomplete. Items in blue seem to be outstanding. Things like the lighting, the intensity and the lumens of the lighting is still not clear, just as one, small example of something that the neighborhood is very interested in. There we go. Nonetheless, information provided reinforces previous concerns and supports denial. NMED's comments imply that the lack of a complete site plan beforehand led to damage of the septic drain field when the property was graded. This leads to questions about whether that'll impede the function of the larger septic system needed for this kind of development. Originally, there was supposed to be 100 parking spots. This site plan shows 197. The applicant just stated, no, it's really 100. Without some very clear consistency, it's very hard to understand what's happening, to try and anticipate those impacts, and frankly, to trust the process and what's going on. Using the 197 parking spots, of course, that's double the original plan. It's double what the STA says is the existing amount of estimated daily trips on Webb Road. And I don't believe that with this increase, 2 driveways on Webb would prevent the dangerous and inefficient backups on Webb and Del Rey. And I think the question came up about where are the congregants coming from? And frankly, coming from the south on Del Rey is my bigger concern because of some of the blind spots and what's happening there already with accidents. I have a picture I'll show you in a little bit. It seems in the code, and I can go back, it's not working, sorry.
Art, can you?
Oh, there we go.
Okay.
There we go. It seems in part 3 that the county can require a TIA at this stage for approval of a special use permit, not just the building permits. So I think everyone in this room kind of gets to an answer, and I really respect that. I think we're all ready for that, but I did want to put that out as an option for you. Here we go. So, again, there's still, I'm not sure where I am. I think there's certainly a difference of opinion about whether there is a need for this kind of use and set of services in this particular neighborhood. I think the applicant's statements about the need for services generally is very well taken. This is not a slight on the church's activities or individuals in any sense. Nonetheless, there's just some differences of opinion with the people that already live there. Why we chose to live there was to actually get away from non-residential use. And I can go on about that for a very long time, and I'll spare you. The services provided can be provided really from anywhere. There still hasn't been a very clear description in my mind about why it needs to be at this particular location when there are all these logistical concerns. I do live a little farther away than some from this development, but Webb Road is my only access in and out of my neighborhood. And I run there and I walk there and I know my neighbors and I've been meeting them more lately as well. And, I also care for the folks that are living just a few hundred feet away that have shared their stories with me about the impacts of the dust, trips to the emergency room because of asthma, seizures, increased filter costs, things like that. Some less impactful and some, pretty serious, frankly, that put us a little on guard with this entire process. So I do want to let you know that residents' concerns are very genuine. We are trying to look at as many details as we can because we are genuinely concerned for the fate of our neighborhood. With respect to other uses, you saw the zoning map. I would really encourage the applicant to look at some of the industrial zone lots that are actually vacant right now on Del Rey. There's plenty of other locations as well. But, at the last meeting, and it came up again, the applicant mentioned the Triple J excavation, which is just across the street, Del Rey, from the property we're talking about as a reason to allow another non-conforming use. But the non-residential uses are still very minimal nearby from a neighborhood perspective. And there's no equivalency between the impacts of this proposal and Triple J, which you can see in the picture over here. This house-like building is an administrative office for a small staff who confirm that there's usually 1 to 3 and never more than 5 cars there. They don't store large equipment and no excavation occurs there. It generates no more traffic than a single residence, and actually generates less noise and light. Being across Del Rey, it also doesn't have the same influence on the neighborhood itself. It's worth noting that rock wall, and if you look closely on the right side, you can see a different color rock. That rock wall has been damaged by vehicular accidents and has had to be rebuilt. So I believe that, and maybe some of this is in the eye of the beholder. Again, it's not a slight to the role that religious institutions play in our communities, but I believe that this project in this particular location is incompatible with the Unified Development Code objectives. It'll negatively impact our welfare, disturb the harmony of the neighborhood, and set a precedent for growth of other non-conforming uses. I ask again whether you'd consider approval for, we were talking about more major commercial type operations if they had the same kinds of impacts on this lot, or its history. I really appreciated that in the case of the SUP that you rejected on January 13th, you held the applicant accountable for violations and recognized that there were more suitable locations for that particular use. And, I would hope that same logic applies today. The violations and incomplete application warrant denial on their own, in my opinion. And, some of the effects of the violations, as I mentioned before, actually can't really be reversed at this point. Recent actions continue to engender little confidence. It's clear that there's a lot more information today, which I really appreciate, but folks were very anxious for a decision at the last meeting, but there didn't appear to me to be any sort of urgency to provide the information that was required by the county or to address the violations. The STA was only done after you voted to table the case without it. The sign still hasn't been removed for the property. And of course, there's been contradictory statements about the size of the building, and it just keeps changing despite statements made under oath at the last meeting. So I don't feel an exception to zoning should be made under these circumstances. And while I certainly feel for the applicant's predicament now that it actually owns the property, it would be unfair to prioritize the applicant's investment over that of all of those who purchased homes in this neighborhood because of its current character. So at a minimum, I hope you'll condition this permit on a suite of mitigations, but I do respectfully urge that you deny this permit. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hold on just a second. Is there any questions?
I've heard
Forgot about my slides.
Okay, thank you.
of staff, yes.
Okay. Eileen, who's next?
Mark, Allie? Please raise your right hand and state your name and address for the record.
Mark Alley, 5200 Chiricahua Trail.
Do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give today is the truth and nothing but the truth under penalty of law?
I do.
Thank you.
I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I'm a new resident to Las Cruces. I've bought my house on Chiricahua just about a...
You can raise that mic up.
Okay.
If that'll
I
help.
bought my house just about a year ago. I'm still moving from Utah, and I am concerned with the application for this zoning variance. I have a history from Cedar City, where I'm moving from. Cedar City had a beautiful historic area downtown. Gave it a lot of charm, like many small towns in Utah. In the historic district there, they made some zoning changes to allow for multi-family units right adjacent to the historic area. And as a result, over the 16 years that I lived there, the whole tenor of the town, the historic area, the charm changed, and from what everyone would want to have in their neighborhood to a mix of commercial uses with some older homes, and it's totally destroyed the feel and the charm of the town. I moved and bought my home because of the beauty of the natural beauty of the area, as well as the neighborhood, the feel of the neighborhood, the community. And I would really regret that the possibility of that changing. I'm not concerned, obviously, I'm not concerned that the value, change in property value, but it's the quality of life and what I had hoped that I was coming to would remain, at least in my lifetime, unchanged, or at least as the area continued to develop, it would develop in the current state, which is, it is residential. As I drive around it, and I was just thinking, if the original developer had put a stone wall, which, this town, there's stone walls everywhere. If the original developer, which I think is Elephant Butte or whatever it was, had they, when they put in the subdivision, had put in one of these beautiful walls like down in Park Hill and had enclosed the area, I'm wondering whether we'd even be having this conversation right now, because there would be a clear delineation of this being a residential neighborhood as it is currently zoned for. I mean, I don't think, it's hard to imagine that if that were the case, like Park Hill, if there was an empty lot of a size that is under consideration, if there was one in Park Hill, whether that would be an appropriate, whether it'd be a real good reason to put any type of a institutional use in that kind of a neighborhood if it was already delineated. So my point is, I'm being a little long-winded, but if you already had a wall, look, and if that was like called Mountain View Estates, I doubt that we would be having this conversation. I do go to church, and my church is in one of the most beautiful areas of Las Cruces, down in the Alameda district. And the reason there's not an issue there is because the church itself is a converted home that is, I mean, you wouldn't know it was a church unless you saw the little sign in front of it. So my point here is that if you are going to have a church in a residential area, it should look like the residential area, that it belongs there. And this 50 by 100 or whatever the ultimate size is proposed to be is certainly not consistent with the architecture of the area. It will stand out, and I don't see it as enhancing the aesthetics of the area. If there were to be any alternative use for this lot, I would urge the commission, if there's any need of the community or those of us who live in the area, to me, the best use of that property would be for the commission to propose that we put in a park for the residents of the area, for the several 200 or 300 or 400 homes that are in the area. There is no park nearby. Yes, there's desert. If you go to the end of Webb or the end of Westmoreland, you end up in the trails going into the desert. But there's no nearby park for residents, and I would love for that property to be a park for the residents there. Two other notes. I think this would be, if you were to permit this zoning variance, if you allow it, and this were to move forward, I think it would set a terrible precedent for the neighborhood. I live on the northeast corner of the intersection of Westmoreland and Chiricahua. Directly, diagonally opposite me on the southwest corner is an empty lot, probably about an acre or so. If this were allowed, if this precedent set, here in the middle of that neighborhood back there, what could we expect that could possibly be turning up in that empty lot? Does anyone have any thoughts what could possibly go there? If you can allow a church down in that neighborhood, what else follows? I guess you've set a precedent, and then you'd have a hard time to, I think it would be difficult, purely on a logical basis, to deny someone who had a reasonable request for some alternative type of institutional service. I would encourage you not to go down that path. That's a very slippery slope. And if you've ever had anything like this in your own neighborhoods, you know what I'm talking about. So anyway, in conclusion, I guess for me, I would urge you not to approve this request. My reasons, as well as for the reasons that Ms. Parker has so eloquently enumerated, I'm not sure that the applicant has a firm grasp of everything that's going to be ultimately required were approval given, and whether they have the financial resources to complete the project in a timely manner is also an open question. I don't know if there's any requirement in this county to have financial resources, have proof of funds so that the county is not left with a half-completed or a third-completed project and then has to be stuck with that. So for all these reasons, I would strongly urge the commission not to approve this request and not to postpone the decision. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Eileen?
Wayne Grosskopf. Please state your name and address for the record.
Wayne Grosskopf, John Wayne Grosskopf, 5083 Navajo Trail, Las Cruces, New Mexico.
Do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give today is the truth and nothing but the truth under penalty of law?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Same thing. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, my gosh. I gotta first ask Mr. Rubio, are you familiar with Don Yannon?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Can you speak up closer to the mic?
You have to address the commission, not staff, okay?
Okay. I was wondering if Mr. Rubio is familiar with Don Yannon.
I'm not, sir. I'm new to this.
There is a church in Donyana. Secondly, where is this dollar store you're talking about? There's two in Donyana. The most recent dollar store put up is within city limits there. So it's about 3 miles away from Webb Road. So I'm a little confused as why that dollar store is even an issue. Secondly, or thirdly, whatever, Del Rey, if you go by the signs, does not turn into Lorena Road. About 100 feet past Webb Road, Del Rey takes a hard left down towards the interstate.
Right.
So, having said that, your comments on single entrance out of the proposed lot onto Webb Road is going to create a horrendous traffic situation. People come out of Webb Road, they turn left down Del Rey, they turn right up Del Rey, and then they turn left down Del Rey all the time, every time. And if you come from Webb Road and stop, check left and right, pull out, you barely get to the first little rise, and you look in your mirror, where'd this car come from? They've come from down off of Webb or Del Rey, made the turn, and they're right on top of you. Okay, if you're going about 1.5 miles on Del Rey, there's a fairly sharp corner there. There's been multiple accidents there. My point being, if this development is going to go forward, there is going to have to be major road work from at least Lorena, where Lorena starts, and Webb or Del Rey ends there, all the way, because you're going to have, it's fairly busy. This morning, you sat there at at Webb Road, let a half dozen cars go by. This is on a weekday. It's not any different on a Sunday morning. People leave there Sunday mornings, they go to different churches, they go to different areas, they go shopping, and they go whatever people do. Okay, that's my take on what has happened here so far. Now I'm going to address the proposal here. And I'm going to read because I can't think and
That's fine.
First, I would like to address the rezoning signs and how the residents were notified. I believe for the development properties, these rezoning signs and permits are too small, not easily seen, and hard to read. They are fine for residential lots, but are not large development, not for a large development. I know this is not the board's concern. However, it might have an effect on your decision-making. There were only 25 letters sent to the residents on Creek Trail. I believe this is a misrepresentation of the entire community. There should have been notices sent to every household in the community, as the development affects the entire community. Had this been done, there would have been more feedback to the board, providing a better understanding of the community's opinions. I believe also that the church should have sent flyers to each household, letting everybody know who they are, what they intend to do, let the people know that the church wants to be a part of the community. I would have expected the church to canvass the community for feedback on the proposal, being the Christian way. This being the Christian way. The property is owned by Eugene and Rosette Samuels. Are they the sole owners and builders of this facility? Will the church be providing additional financing to this? Is this a partnership? Partnerships never last. At the last meeting, travel times were discussed. From various places to the corner of Webb Road and Del Rey. This must mean the church has no members in the area? And if so, why build on this location? This will bring heavy traffic on Del Rey Road, already a very busy two-lane road. The intersections of Del Rey, Webb, and Lorena roads are not suitable for heavy traffic. I would think there would need to be, as I stated, major road and construction to be done to make traffic flow workable there. Okay, I lost myself. I would think that there would be a need for extensive road work in the area to minimize the congestion caused by the offset of Webb, Del Rey, and Lorena roads because of that short distance between turns. And if this road work is required, I hope it's not a county taxpayer's expense. Force the church to force itself into a community without any consultation with the residents of the community is not a good way to start. This could lead to hostilities between the church and the community. I'm of the opinion that this project should be turned down mostly because the church has not shown willingness to communicate and work within the community or to become a part of the community. Having said that, I don't believe building a church at this location is needed. It's not wanted, and due to the church not recognizing there's even a community there, they could not be welcome. I commend the church for what they've stated, the work they do. However, I don't believe there is that much of a need in that area for that type. I believe they would be better suited in a more populous area to provide the services that they do. Any questions for me?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think we have one more. That's it? Okay. Ms. Gomez, did you want to respond to any of the comments?
Yeah, there are a couple of things that I wanted to respond to.
Art, did you want to spray the podium? Sorry.
I want to kind of retract just, and I got to pull that way down. But I wanted to kind of go back just a little bit when the engineering department was talking about Lorena entrance or egress. She had noted that there needed to be 150 feet. And I just wanted to reiterate that.
Do you want the site plan back up?
Not unless you guys
Okay.
need it, but there is 640 feet along Lorena, and I just, I'm hoping that that all works out as well to the good. I feel like that would take care of a lot of the concerns as far as traffic. I do want to say that it seems like the residents prior to our application for this SUP have got some concerns of traffic. And hopefully, they can address those on a separate issue, because whether we're granted this or not, I believe that we will be, but whether we're granted it or not, it seems like they're very unhappy with that situation. I don't want to try to blow any of it off. I wish that we could have went back and maybe contacted some residents that were there, in order to develop a relationship from the get-go. I do apologize if a sour taste has been put in their mouth. I do want to say that I have congregation members that have been a part of our ministry for 22 years now, that travel all the way from Silver City, New Mexico, Deming, New Mexico, Vado, Mesquite. So we do have people that come from many different areas and have been faithful to the ministry for a long time. We're not a fly-by-night ministry. We have, like I said, been established since January of 2000. And so, it is our goal, I just want to reiterate, to be a blessing in our terms, be a blessing to that community. And I do feel like we will be able to accomplish that and do that. As far as the site plan and anything that they feel is lacking, I just want to remind that, we had less than 2 weeks to present this, for me to get with an engineer. There was a lot of back and forth. But I do feel like, as a whole, it does give you a view and a picture of what it would be like. We want to make sure that we show adequate parking. As of now, we have 145 members. We're nowhere near even 100 cars at this point. So just want to let you know that we do want to show that we are mindful of potential growth, and that's why you see the additional parking spaces there as far as our end. But we are awaiting to see what would be required as far as engineering, that TIA, and of course, we're going to move forward. Funding, I don't believe that that's anybody's concern but Power Praise Fellowship, and I believe that we are sitting good, and we're ready to move forward on everything that we are presenting here to this commission. And that's really all that I needed to say right now, unless there's any other questions from any of you commissioners.
I think we're okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Commissioner Thurston, you had some questions for staff?
I do.
Please.
In someone's comments, the lighting has been mentioned. I don't know, where do we stand on our quote, new lighting ordinance? And I don't even know who to address that to. Does that go to
There is a section,
you,
sir.
or does it go to Janine, or does it go to?
If I may, sir, there is a section on it's the dark skies ordinance. That is what they go by as far as putting those limits on there. But it's all typically reviewed at the building permitting stage when they come in and bring the final construction plans.
But what would that look like there? I mean, if I understand the implementation of the lighting ordinance it would require that that parking lot, that building and so forth would have to have lights.
Correct, yes, sir. I think, I don't want to speak to the folks from Building Services, but they do a thorough review as far as electrical, plumbing, everything, and they review all that.
Do we I don't even know the basis now of the new ordinance. What would that even look like to the people out there that have made statements about they like it because it's dark, they like it because they can see the stars and the moon and all of that kind of stuff? But what is the actual ordinance that affects this building now? Because I'm assuming that that's in effect and that this building would have to comply with the new lighting ordinance. But is that one light every, I don't even know what that,
I couldn't speak to it, sir. It'd have to be somebody from Building Services.
so is the applicant aware of the light that would be required? And do the neighbors know that that's what's going to happen out there?
The applicant would
Be a
have to,
lighted area, lighted,
well, the applicant would have to adhere to those requirements when they submit their construction permits. And if it's not, then they would have to revise their plans to meet it.
okay.
Sir.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
just to clarify, I do believe that the recent amendment to our UDC regarding lighting only applied to new development. And the lighting requirements for this building would fall under current lighting requirements for that.
Yes, sir, you're
am I
correct.
on that?
Yes, you are correct.
Thank
And that typically is like in the subdivision stage. This is like a pretty old subdivision. It's
Thank you.
already
So this would,
the residential, right.
so the lighting requirements would have to be consistent with the residential lighting requirements in that area?
Yes, sir, that is
Thank you.
correct.
Nothing further, Mr. Chair.
Yeah. Anybody else? So, Art, wait, no.
Yes, sir.
How do we know this isn't a spot zone?
This is not a zone change.
I know it's not a zone change.
This is strictly a special use permit. Referencing it as a spot zone is not accurate.
Okay.
Because they're not proposing to change the zone. It's still going to stay D2. And this use is supplementary use that's allowed with a special use permit. So that's
Okay.
the deal.
Okay.
Just, Mr. Chair, in reference to, actually, I'm glad you brought this up. The letter that you sent, the disposition that was sent to us yesterday regarding a spot zone, that was also for a special use permit. So it definitely gives a lot of clarity on whether or not a special use permit could be classified as a spot zone or not.
Okay.
I personally do not see this as a spot zone.
Okay. I'm going to close it to public participation. So this is up for commission discussion. Do any commissioners have any questions or comments at this time? Mel, that includes you. By the way, for those of you who haven't been here before, we do have one commissioner that's on remotely. I guess Mel's okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mel?
are there any requirements for the county regarding that road? And the question I have, is that road minimum road standards and under AASHTO standards? That road comes into a choker just south of that development.
Which road are you talking about, Mel?
Del Rey.
Art, did you get the question? Commissioner Acosta was asking whether or not Del Rey meets minimum county road standards. Bernadette.
Do you feel special yet?
Del Rey is considered a minor arterial roadway.
Minor arterial?
No, it's a minor arterial.
And does it meet minimum standards for a minor collector or minor arterial?
At this time it does. If they were to do, say, we go in and redo the roadway, we'll make the improvements. Like, say the county decides to go in and redo the roadway, improvements will be done.
So Mel, your question relates to the current standard of the road?
Well, yeah, let's go back on the timeline here a little bit, right? That area there was by the Westmoreland group years back. And I remember that road there was a double compact, well, actually gravel compact road until the county took it over. And I don't even know if it was dedicated or how it came to be. But it seems like the road does not meet, doesn't look like it meets minimum road standards regarding traffic flow, simply because you have a swale on the south side of, as you travel north, and it appears that, like this gentleman said a while back, I think it was Mr. Alley, I think, or Miss Parker, I can't remember, one of them. Anyway, that if you travel there, you have a car right, you look to your right, and there's a car, you know. It doesn't seem like it's, like that swale should be there. It seems like that swale should be taken down, and the road there should be widened, because as you travel north, that goes into an arroyo, and that arroyo, it has to be graded constantly once you have a heavy rain. I believe that the county should share some responsibility regarding opening up that road a little bit. I could be wrong, but it would solve some of the issues anyway.
Okay, thank you. But you think it's a minor arterial? Okay.
Chairman?
Well, it's a minor collector, sorry.
It is,
Minor
okay.
collector.
Minor collector, yeah. Commissioner Thurston.
Can you describe to me what that means? And I'm not trying to be, but is that a 60-foot right-of-way, or is that an 80-foot right-of-way?
I think it's an 80-foot right-of-way.
Okay, 80-foot
I think it's
right-of-way.
at least an 80-foot right-of-way.
The improvements inside that 80-foot would be sidewalks, curbs and gutter, 28-foot
Well, it
paving?
depends. It depends on the area. I mean, some areas, it depends on everything that's around it, the development around it, right? So say, you don't want to put sidewalks where there's no sidewalks, right? If the whole area,
No, you do.
well, sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, but like, I don't know how.
But I'm just saying, do you have the
We
actual
do have the,
section, of the defined section
The
of the
cross-sec-
road that would be
cross-section.
built in
Cross-section.
that? Is that available to see, or is that in the books in the building department? The reason I bring that up is, okay, if I go in and I try to build a road to a subdivision, or because I build a house, then the county would say, as part of my building permit, I have to bring that road up to this standard. And if that standard is what you're saying now, what is that standard that that the applicant would have to meet? And then my next question, that would be on her half on the east side. But I don't think the county would require it to be done on the west side, because they're not changing any behavior over there.
right.
So now we're going to be going from Westmoreland having, in my opinion, you're going to have curb, gutter, and sidewalk and paving on the north side of Westmoreland. You're going to come down, you're going to turn into what I call Del Rey, but they're calling it Laurentia or whatever.
Lorena.
So I'm seeing, and then by the time that they go past Del Rey again, then that road is going to be changed on the east side substantially if it meets the criteria of the road section in today's requirement for development. Am I wrong?
No?
Okay. Does the applicant know that?
They do now.
Mr. Chair,
Mel?
Mr. Chair, according to some of the standards on the UDC regarding the MPO, right, there was clarity done on parkways, sidewalks, curb, gutter, all of these things, and we had discussed that extensively. I remember that on one side of the road you have sidewalks, curb, and gutter, and the other side is dirt or gravel compact. It just appears to me that there's a glitch here somewhere that I think that we might be able to resolve, providing using the actual terminology that we use, the safety and general and health weather of the public. Roadways certainly is part of that. We have to protect people coming in and out of places. We have to protect ingress and egress. We have to protect that. So that's my question to engineering. And I think Mr. Molina would be able to answer that very, very quickly regarding meeting the minimum standards for the MPO and a minor arterial and things of this nature. And I'd like to get an answer on that.
I'm not sure what your question is. Bernadette, do you know
Well,
what
it's not
Mel's
so much
asking?
a question. I mean, it's basically a statement, Mr. Chair. Like Commissioner Thurston stated, you know, we'd like to know what some of the minimum standards are regarding these issues.
Okay, wait just a second.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Like Janine's saying, Artis said, I've said, the TIA is going to be the determining factor right there. We're still waiting for that. So until we get that, really, we still can't make those calls. I understand what Mel is saying, Mr. Acosta is saying. It's just going to decide on how much traffic is really going to be impacting those roadways. We do know we're going to see an influx in traffic, right? We do know that, especially at that intersection, and especially at that other intersection that's not far ahead, where the sharp 90 comes in, where Delray turns into, from Laredo, turns into Delray. We're going to see that.
Right.
And so that's why we have to we have to analyze it. It has to be analyzed. So we can't make those calls until we have all the information. And so I don't want to make that.
No, that's okay. I understand.
And I would love to go get my supervisor to come. He's actually in the field right now, though, in a meeting, so he is not available.
Well, he can't answer either because he doesn't have a TIA either, right?
Right. We're still kind of in a holding pattern, so.
Well, it's unfortunate. I'll say that. Thank you, Bernadette.
Okay.
Anybody else? Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mel?
How is it that we're going to make a determination on this case when we have still things that are not, that we have no answers on? So that we can require that as part of the SUP permit?
Well, I think the answer is staff didn't require it ahead of time. So we are where we are with the information that we have. And the TIA will have to be done before the building permit is issued, but we don't have one for the SUP, even though it is a major issue.
Okay.
So the issue, as I understand this, the issue before the commission is whether, well, there's two things. A, whether the land use is appropriate for a special use permit, and B, whether it meets the requirements as stated in the UDC. Those are the two issues. The issues of financing, whether the church can afford it, that's not our concern. That's up to them. The issue of the site plan has to be done before the building permit is issued. The grading permit, same thing. So those things are requirements that come after the question of the special use permit. So the real issue before us is whether the land use is appropriate and whether it should be issued a special use permit based on the criteria that have been stated by staff and are written in the UDC. There is a staff recommendation of conditional approval. So if no one has any other questions or comments, it's probably time for a motion.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Acosta.
The motion, as I see it, should be very specific to all the requirements that are needed. So whoever postulates a motion, all of these issues should be considered as part of the motion and any friendly amendment according to that motion. And that's all I have to say.
All right, so let me ask the commission to do this. If you would quickly review the conditional approval as stated by staff, there's 5 conditions. Are there any other conditions that you would like to see added to this that relate to the special use permit? Not to the site plan, not to financing, et cetera?
No, you're good.
Okay.
I'll make the motion if you're ready.
Okay.
Okay.
Commissioner Zargis.
I'd like to move conditional approval of case number SU 21-017 based on the staff findings and analysis. Conditions being that access to subject property is limited to Webb Road, no access to La Reina or Del Rey. The access is to be at least 150 foot from the intersection of La Reina and Webb. Based on the STA information received, a TIA will be required at building permit submittal. Certificate of occupancy will not be issued unless mitigation, if any, is required by the TIA is addressed. The applicant must provide erosion and dust control measures within 10 days to correct grading without permit and subject to a triple fee. And the applicant must comply with state site plan requirements pursuant to 350-208 detailed site plan and all county and state grading and building permits required at the building permit stage.
I second.
Thank you. Just as I want to ask you for a friendly amendment. I'm going to suggest a friendly amendment. On number 1, it says access to subject property is limited to Webb Road. No access from Lorena Road will be allowed unless as indicated by the TIA, okay?
That's fine. Sure.
So what that means is when the TIA is done, if it indicates that there should be access from Lorena, then that becomes a possibility. Okay, I don't want to remove that option. So we've got a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, we'll call the roll. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Anybody else have any further comments? No, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair?
Go
Just a
ahead.
second. Hold on, Mel.
I just want to, I appreciate especially staff's testimony today, and I do believe that these 5 conditions are very appropriate to address a lot of the concerns regarding a lot of the concerns that were addressed, in public comment and in the opposition. I do appreciate you, Mr. Chair, for really pointing out that, the 2 biggest issues are the appropriate, the land use and being consistent with the UDC requirements. As I went over this case, especially over the past week, and, I should have, and I appreciate Arturo's, just testifying that the traffic impact is going to be very similar in the case of a higher density multifamily structure, in some cases could actually be even worse. And I do appreciate that, being that brought to the commission's attention. I have nothing further with that. I yield to the commission. Thank you.
One second. I just want to remind commission, if you vote no, you need to state why. Okay? Eileen, you want to go ahead and call the roll?
Yes.
Yes.
Was there a second on the amendment?
Commissioner Herrera.
Right, thank you.
Commissioner Thurston did a second?
Yes, we did. Commissioner Herrera gave us a second. I'm sorry, did you, Mel, you wanted to speak? Was there something you wanted to say?
Well, I had just, as part of the discussion on the motion, we are under the legal confines of land use, right? According to Art, am I right, when we make our choice?
It's land use is the major issue.
Right.
And
Okay.
Aunt Mel, and because it's a special use permit, we have the criteria that that Art went through. That's all the A through G on the staff analysis. That's part of the consideration for a special use permit.
All right. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, can I ask staff one question? Is
Yep.
there a requirement in place for mitigating the dust control caused by grading at this point? I do believe that the residents do deserve to have that taken care of as soon as possible.
Yes, sir, that's why we put that condition for 10 days. We meant to say 10 days after today.
Okay.
Okay. Should that be added to the motion?
I think it's in there. Is it in there?
Number 4.
Number 4, I'm sorry.
It's not specific, though, as to when it starts, like you pointed out, sir, but it does say 10 days.
So, there you go.
If you want to, I guess if you want to make that change from today.
Yeah, sure. Okay, is there anything else? Let's try it again. Mel, you okay?
Yes, I'm okay.
All right, Eileen, let's give it a try.
Commissioner Zargis,
Yes.
Commissioner Thurston,
Yes.
Commissioner Herrera, Commissioner Montañez,
Yes.
Commissioner Lear,
Yes.
Commissioner Acosta,
Yes.
Chair Zerniak.
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you very much. If members of the neighborhood or Ms. Gomez have any questions, you can address them to staff. Thank you very much for attending. On to new business. There being no new business, correct? No new business. Administrative approvals for January.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. So for the month of January 2022, we issued 17 brand-new single-family residentials, which are depicted on the map in yellow. Additionally, we had 2 new commercial buildings, which are warehouses in the Santa Teresa area. And then what is not mapped are the 42 additions to single-family residentials that we issued, as well as 4 additions to commercial buildings. And we also issued 15 mobile home installation permits. And then our total permit fees were $169,000 for a valuation of $30.5 million. Is that right? Not 30 million. Yes, 30.5 million. Any questions?
Any staff input?
I don't have any. Do you, Art?
So,
No, Mr. Chair.
so for commission input, I've got a question for you. When a zone change or a special use permit comes before us, when traffic is such a critical issue, I mean, we're baffled by what's going to happen to that property. Why wouldn't you require a TIA before you bring it to us and not at the time of the building permit? I mean, I don't even know. I mean, it was very difficult to make that decision because it is part of the criteria.
Yes, sir. That is the discretion of the engineering department as far as when it comes in. They felt that the traffic wouldn't be as impactful, except for that one day.
That's nonsense.
And then, Mr. Chair, in this particular case, we only gave her a week to respond. So we just didn't have enough time to tell them that we needed a TIA in addition to.
Yeah, TIA would take a while to prepare it.
I think, let me just, my suggestion is, and if you need me to do it, I'll do it. I think Christine ought to talk to engineering about this, because every commissioner had a question about traffic. And if they didn't, I'm sure they were thinking about it. And to be fair to everybody here, you really need to have that information. And for them to just say, no access from Lorena, that's not an answer. I mean, like I said earlier, there's decel lanes all over the place and right-hand turn lanes all over the place. Look at Loman.
And you did have the option of further postponing it
Well,
to get that.
yeah.
I know.
Would we have had the option of requiring a TIA when we tabled 2 weeks ago?
I don't know.
Would we have?
Well, the reason why we asked for the STA is that determines whether the TIA is needed and the level that the TIA is needed.
So once, it was needed, right?
Yes. Based
So
on the STA.
we could have postponed based on the need for a TIA.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay, we gave her a special use permit, right? She goes through and finds that the staff says that this has to be put in, this has to be put in, and all of a sudden their cost and the reality of life, being in that business, all of a sudden runs up to, let's say, $900,000 to $1 million. All of a sudden, that site location is, and I'm purely speculative here, becomes non-usable. What happens to the special use permit? Is it conditioned on just her specific application? And if she doesn't perform in a certain period of time, does it go away?
Yes.
What is that time frame? Is that 6 months?
1 year.
1 year?
They have 1 year to commence.
Okay. So in that 1 year period of time, they go out and they find that the cost to do all of this is not going to fit their needs, then they just leave it dormant and it goes back to its previous state?
Right. The SUP is considered abandoned at that point.
Would they still have to address the issue of the dust?
I think the
Yes, sir.
dust ordinance, the dust situation, we gave them the 10 days, so I'm hoping that's a county.
No, that's a violation, so they have to address that, yes, sir. Otherwise,
gotta be
it
addressed.
proceeds to, the courts and all that, right?
Yes,
They
if they
can
don't
go out and
comply.
replant it within, that natural stuff will just come up in 2 or 3 days, right? No, it won't. It took 120 years to get to where it's at, but we're gonna have it back to normal in 10
You have
days.
magic creosote? What?
Mr. Chair,
Man, I had a tough time with this one.
I think we all,
Mr.
Real
Chair.
tough time.
so what I was going to say, Janine, I think Christine ought to talk to engineering about this, because if this kind of case comes up again, I'm sure one of the commissioners is going to say, no TIA, we're tabling the case.
I agree.
Good advice.
And Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mel?
I think that the county, I hate to, burden the county because I know we're strapped for money and everything else. But there's some issues here that on roads this has always been a problem, in the outlying areas, always. I think the county is going to have to step up on some of these issues regarding the widening of these roads and stuff. I mean, it's ridiculous to put anything up there like on this particular case, And then all of a sudden, you're gonna have accidents right there right at the T where it goes into Webb Road. I mean, it's phenomenal that the county has not looked at that. Those swales there are phenomenal. You go 3/4 of the way down or 3/4 of the way up. You can't see cars coming or going. And if you want to make a left turn, you're going to be rear-ended, one way or the other. People can't see. Hello.
I think all I can say towards that is that the TIA is going to be the all-inclusive of what that, the intersection of Westmoreland and the intersection of Del Rey is going to have to be covered in that TIA. And then they've got to meet that criteria.
Yeah.
But that won't come through us. That just goes through the building division, so.
You know what? Would you do us a favor, when the TIA comes out, would you share that with us?
That would be a nice gesture.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
It's a very strange area up there. The way those roads hook together, it's very strange.
It is.
And TIA will help with that.
And Mr. Chair?
Mel?
I was going to ask Janine a question. Does the county offer additional training for planning and zoning commissioners to attend to get more insight as to a little bit more training? Is that possible?
I feel attacked, Commissioner.
Yeah, Mel, the answer to that is that yes, they can.
Yeah.
If we can request it, or an individual commissioner can request to attend training.
And anymore, Mr. Chair, there's so much on the web. I mean, there's webinars constantly about whatever you're interested in, especially on YouTube.
Yeah,
That's where we get a lot of our certifying credits for our professional designations.
I know for as long as I've been on here, when they did the training for Fern, I went into that too. And I've been on this board for 10 years now, something like that. So
Well, the training I get, Mr. Chair, is I just go to different cities and municipalities and sit in a meeting, but now with pandemic, we're basically grounded. And there's so many issues, like Art will tell you that about it. El Paso, for instance, I mean, if you attend some of those meetings, it's phenomenal, the things that you can learn from what goes on over there. Then you go to the smaller municipalities, even as far up as Lincoln and Otero counties, there's a lot to learn on site. But I'm saying it's right now we can't go because of the pandemic.
yeah.
I move for adjournment.
All right.
I have one thing to say, I've seen projects like this go before. And it always happens. They do these surveys and sites and they build it, but what happens is the taxpayers wind up with a bigger bill and straightening up the mess. And I am disappointed with what you guys did here today to approve this without proper studies and actually looking at the cost of presenting with it.
Cost isn't an issue. I have to stop, I have to stop you because we have to adjourn the meeting, okay? So, yes, you can appeal it to the Board of County Commissioners. So we've got a motion to adjourn. Any objection? So moved.
Do it.
Is the TIA, will that be available for the public when it's